So I decided my next step was to go to Syracuse University, and it was awesome. College is one of the best experiences. They treat you like an adult, and they give you all these cool things for free, like equipment and cameras and lenses, and I had everything at my fingertips. I felt like I was already an international photographer in college because we were living abroad. We had travel. I studied abroad in London and in Italy, and we'd have classes like inside the Sistine Chapel and like going to all these places, and we were like going to the opera and doing all these things as part of class and taking photos and having access to the dark rooms and everything 24 hours a day. And it was just like I was already living the life that I thought I was meant to live. I'm like, I'm already an international photographer. I'm traveling the world. It's amazing. I have all this equipment. It's so cool. And then you graduate. and they just are like, hey, here's your piece of paper that says you graduated, and good luck, and you're broke. And I didn't even own a camera, actually. I'd been using like my Syracuse University's camera the entire time I was there. So I graduated, and I had this moment where I was like, what now? So I'm sure a lot of you guys have that moment. I've had it a few times in my life, the what now moment. It's kind of, I just didn't know what to do. I felt like the rug was pulled out from under me. I had no money, I had no equipment. I had a piece of paper that said that I knew how to take pictures. I didn't know how to start a business. I didn't know where to begin. And I didn't know where to live or anything. So I just decided to pack up my car. I'm still driving that same car years later. And my little RAV4, I love the thing, okay. But I packed up everything I owned in that car and decided I was gonna drive to Los Angeles. Because in my head it was like, Los Angeles, that's where all the celebrities are. I'm gonna be a fashion celebrity photographer. And so I made it as far as Nashville, and then I ran out of gas. And I hadn't even thought about having money for gas, and it's a true story. And so I played violin all through college and high school, and I had to hawk my violin in Nashville to get gas money to make it to Los Angeles. So that's a true story. And so I sold my violin, I made it to Los Angeles, and then I was like, what now? You know? And so I ended up having my first LA story. I'll tell you this real quick. My first LA story was I got a job bartending. I was living out of my car. I got a job bartending, and on the second day of bartending, I was, bored. I had like one customer, and I was playing that video game at the end of the bar, the Wheel of Fortune game. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. I could totally, if I was on this show, I would clean up. I'm so good at Wheel of Fortune. And this guy at the bar was like, oh, okay, and he like signed his check and left it. And I walked over and grabbed his bill after he left, and he left his business card, and he was the executive producer of Wheel of Fortune, sitting at the end of my bar. And so I was like, this is a sign, And so I emailed him, and I was like, I'm like meant to, like destined to be on your show. And he sent me an invitation. I did, and he sent me an invitation to be on Wheel of Fortune, and I ended up winning $7,000, and that's how I bought my first camera to start my business. Yeah, it was a true story. Yeah, I know. And then I won a chandelier on Price is Right that I had sold on eBay. I did the whole game show circuit. I kind of thought that was like, you get sidetracked for a little while. It's true. True story. But then after about a year of just kind of, having fun in LA, I still kind of did a lot of the practices I do now. I didn't realize I was doing them, but I was bartending, and I was always meeting new people. I was meeting aspiring, all the bartenders are struggling actors and actresses, and all these makeup artists and stylists and people would come in and meet all these people, and I was constantly like, we need to collaborate, and let's do a shoot, and let's join forces. And at the time, I was bartending to make money to be able to do that, because I was shooting film, and it's really expensive to produce your own shoot and develop it and print it. And so now all these inspiration shoots, if you guys want to do one, it's pretty much you're just donating your time for the most part. It's digital. You can do it for a lot cheaper than I was doing it back then. And I just wanted to keep creating and keep that feeling I was in college, where I was constantly shooting and creating. And I ended up walking into a photo studio and just demanding that they hired me. So I think I was 23 at this point, and no, I was 22, and I walked in and was like, I don't care if I have to pick up trash and answer phones or whatever. I want to work for your studio, and I just want to learn what it's like to run a business. And I just wouldn't leave until they hired me. They went to lunch, and I was still sitting there, and then they came back, and they hired me. And so I was getting paid $8 an hour, and I was assisting in weddings. I was doing everything but signing checks. And what was really cool about this was that I was able to learn from their expensive mistakes by just being around it and watching it. So my next life lesson that we'll go into right now is, sorry guys, we'll do that again. Ryan Larson is a person I'm going to talk about next, and she was young and hadn't started her business yet. She's now like a pretty big wedding coordinator with Savoir Flair Weddings. But at the time, I was really busy, and they needed to hire like another me at the studio to just do marketing and do all kinds of stuff. And I still didn't have a desk or a job. By the way, I printed out my own business cards. I worked there for like 3 years, and they never gave me a job title or a desk. So I went to a yard sale and bought a desk and like put it in the corner of the studio. And no, I'm not joking. And I printed out business cards that said I was their studio manager, because like I just wanted to give myself a job title. And so I ended up working there. And Ryan Larson, we hired her because I was so busy. We started shooting a lot of weddings and like some celebrity weddings and stuff too in the beginning. And we didn't know anything about weddings. We were a headshot like fashion studio, and all of a sudden all of our clients were coming back and asking us to shoot weddings. So this is where I started, and I honestly never thought I would be shooting weddings. In college, it never even occurred to me. So my next slide is about going out on your own. So Ryan Larson proved out, and she still is like a mentor to me, to be an amazing, amazing networker. And she taught me all these tips about how to start your own business, and I think are really useful no matter what level you're at in your business. And the first one that she taught me is, if you build it, they won't come. I love this slide because in my head, I was like, all right, cool, I got a website, I printed business cards, like, I'm just gonna get all these phone calls. It's gonna be amazing. I'm gonna get all these brides and all this business. And P.S., this was before like social media and blogs and stuff. I'm still shooting film at this point, and there was no Facebook, and maybe Facebook was just starting, but there's no Twitter, no blogs, and that stuff. It was just starting. And so nobody really knew how to network and get out there. Everyone was buying like advertising in magazines, which I don't know if that works for you, but it didn't work for me. And it's a really, really expensive thing that I don't think is worth it at all. I've actually, like as a lesson to myself, I forbid doing magazine advertising. I just think that money could be used so much wiser, like in other ways, like taking someone out to lunch or something like that. So she taught me that you have to be really proactive with your business. And you guys now are so lucky because you have all these free tools. You've got, and as much as it's annoying, you're like, oh, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, like, oh my God, I have to blog this and all this stuff. It's all pretty much free, and you have all these tools at your fingertips to do it. So you should be getting yourselves out there as much as possible. But what I did learn from all this, doing it the old school way, like taking people out to coffee and lunch, is that it is still really important. That human contact with someone, I think, goes so much further than just like tweeting at someone or just Facebooking and like, hey, how you doing? I think it's really, really good to actually take that person out to lunch and meet up with them and work together. And so that was something I took from her, was take out as many people as you can to lunch, but be strategic about it. So you want to like talk to the right catering managers at hotels, or find wedding coordinators you want to work with and take them out. Last impressions are just as important. This thing, I think this is awesome. A lot of people always were worried about their first impression and never think about their last impression. When I worked at the studio, they were awesome. Like, we shot really beautiful pictures, we gave them beautiful albums, we had great weddings, but they did everything like nickel and dimed everyone. So everything was a la carte. So if they would have like a 6-hour package, and if we stayed longer, like the cake cutting went longer, we would just bill them, like however long an extra hour was or whatever. And then if they wanted an album, we'd have to bill them for like every extra spread, and like everything was like, oh, we went to an extra location for your pictures, we're gonna bill you for that. And oh, you want your negatives, you have to wait a year and then pay extra money for that, and like all this stuff. And guess who would be the one who make those phone calls to the brides at the end and be like, hey, awesome, I'm glad you had such a good time at your wedding. There's an outstanding invoice, and I had to like nickel and dime the brides, and it left this really awkward exchange at the end, where their last memory of us wasn't like how amazing their wedding was. Their last memory was, oh my God, they are just like out for the money. They're just like collecting like a bill collector. And I just vowed that I would never ever structure my business that way, that I wanted it to be like a no problem attitude. That's my attitude with my business. Everything's built in my packages. It's all included. It's unlimited time and photos. Engagement shoots are built in. They get their digital negatives. They get everything. They get an album. They get the biggest album that I could possibly give them, with everything in it. they get it and it's built in and there's no hidden cost at the end, because I just felt like that. I hated that phone call. I wanted their last impression of me to be like, oh my God, she's so amazing, she's so like easy to work with. Everything was just done already for me. I didn't have to worry about it, and like that's what she's gonna be telling her friends, you know? So that was a really important thing about your last impression. Setting your own standards. So a lot of you guys are starting out, or at least, you know, maybe been doing it for a few years, this is your first WPPI. There's kind of like two different philosophies about this. Setting your own standards, when I'm talking about that, I mean putting your prices online. I believe in putting your prices online, and I believe in pricing yourself, that you decide your own worth by what you price yourself. You know, it shouldn't be like, oh, I just started out, so I'm gonna put like wedding for $1,500. It should be like, you should be looking at your peers and the people that you wanna be, and you should be pricing yourself at their level and producing work at their level. And you decide your worth, because if you put $1,500 out there, everyone's gonna go, oh, she's only worth X amount, you know what I mean? Like, if you say, okay, I'm gonna be 4,000 or 5 or whatever you wanna price it, then you're already putting in people's minds your worth, that you're worth that. And I thought that was also a great thing. People are like, oh my God, if we put your prices online and it's really expensive, they're not gonna call you. Like, awesome, they're not gonna call me, because then they can afford me and we won't waste each other's time, and you know, and it won't be this awkward conversation where I fell in love with them on the phone, they're great, and they're like, but we only have $1,000. And so it's one of those things where I think that it's important to put it all out there, and you're gonna attract the right people when you do. Keeping a database. I want to talk about this a little bit. I think it's super important, and I learned this from working at the photo studio. You should always have a database of all your vendors that you work with, that you love working with, your coordinators and your photographers and, you know, everyone, florists, whatever, because that's going to be important along the way. It gets a little overwhelming later on, and there's great ways to do it nowadays. There's apps out there, or that are about to be out there. I'm giving a shout out to my boyfriend who's in the back. He's developing an app that's going to help with this really soon. It's coming out in 2 months. I was hoping it was going to be out by now, but it's not. So you guys have to just follow me on Facebook, and I'll blast it when Twitter, whatever, Instagram, follow me somehow, and I'll tell you about it. But the old school way was I had an Excel spreadsheet and just put everybody in that I loved working with, and I just update it all the time, which that's the problem. Like, you never know if someone leaves and changes their job and their information, you don't have that information, but now there's apps that are coming out there that, you know, you don't have to worry about that. They're gonna change in real time, and you're gonna have updated contact information for everyone. This is important because later on, if you wanna do a styled shoot, if you wanna send out you know, a blast, like an email blast or a mail out or anything, a newsletter, you have now this whole database of people to send it out to, people you can just blast out, like, hey, I'm gonna have a gallery show or whatever. So it's just really important to keep a database. The last thing that she taught me, and it helped me with starting my business, was to be not afraid to work for free. And when I say that, I mean, you have to do it strategically. All of us need to make money. It's not, I personally think it's a pain when people are like, oh, you're starting out, and they think they can like take you for all your worth, and they're like, oh, awesome, can you come to this party and shoot it for free? And you're like, ugh. I know what that's like. I did that for years, but even now, you know, 12, 13 years into my career, I still shoot certain things for free if it makes sense, if it's with somebody that I really want to work with, if it is going to give me work or a portfolio that's going to help me get other jobs, and yes, it's totally worth doing. And so when I'm going to show you an example in a second, but working for free, I decided, okay, now I'm starting my business, okay? And now I need to ask myself, what kind of business am I? Like, who am I? I love traveling, I want to be Jacques Cousteau, I want to be all these things. So if I'm at this great point where I have, you know, all this work and a portfolio and a website, and I can start on a clean slate and decide who I am and what I want to do. So I decided I wanted to really go towards and try to get destination weddings. But then it's a catch-22. It's like, how do you book a wedding in Spain if you have no work from Spain? Or how do you know, say you're a destination wedding photographer and you have no work from being on destination? And you can't just, I mean, it'd be nice if you could like have camera will travel and like people hire you. It doesn't work that way. Like, I wish it worked that way. So in the beginning, I had to work for free, meaning I had to fund myself to go on some of these trips and to shoot friends' weddings for free that were having a destination wedding, or contact the coordinator or people over in foreign destinations and ask them if I could shoot one of their weddings, even as an additional photographer for free or whatever. Like, I had to fund it myself because it's a catch-22. You can't get the work unless you have the work. So that was, you know, a lesson I learned really young. So I took this idea and we did, and I'm gonna give a little shout out to Miss Sarah Horowitz in the front row who helped me on this shoot. But we decided to go to the Cayman Islands and do a styled bridal shoot there. And it was all free, we weren't paid for it. We contacted coordinators and people out there, other vendors, and we all decided to collaborate and do a really fun shoot. And Sarah and I videoed it, and don't judge us by our video quality, by the way. So we did it ourselves with our cameras, like, and videoed each other, and we just had an editor splice it, and it was really cool. But I was like, we need to show the behind the scenes of what we do on Destination. Like, why am I different? Like, why wouldn't they just hire somebody else in the Dominican Republic or the Cayman Islands? Like, why are they going to hire me? And so I wanted to put a video out there that showed, you know, that we're fun and that what we do is really fun and what we're willing to do, whatever it takes to get the shot, and that it's more of like an adventure. So I wanted to sell myself as like a full experience as an adventure, and not just any photographer that they could hire there. When I go on Destination, I always try to partner up. Like, it's much more fun to travel with someone else. I usually do an alliance, we'll talk a little bit about that, with another photographer. In that case, it was Sarah and Natasha here in the front row, and we just, you know, went out there and helped each other out and, you know, did the video, and it honestly has led to a lot of other really cool jobs. And it wasn't that hard to film it. We just did little clips here and there, and it was just something that I think brides and grooms are like, wow, that's so cool. I never even thought we could do a shoot like that the day after, or like that you'd be willing to get in the water in a bikini with the stingrays and do a shoot like that. So it was kind of, I wanted to set myself apart from the other photographers. So I took this advice about going on your own, working for free, and when I decided to start my Destination wedding.